Founded in 1889, the University of New Mexico sits on the traditional homelands of the Pueblo of Sandia. The original peoples of New Mexico, Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache, since time immemorial, have deep connections to the land and have made significant contributions to the broader community statewide. We honor the land itself and those who remain stewards of this land throughout the generations, and also acknowledge our committed relationship to Indigenous peoples. We gratefully recognize our history.
Thanks so much. It's a great way to start the meeting. I thought we'd run through any updates from any subcommittee members who are here, and then get an update on the die-in that occurred earlier this week. And Dr. Romero-Leggett can give us an update on the IEC and succession planning. And then we'll have an open forum at the end for any additional announcements. Does anybody have any additions to the agenda as it currently stands? Or corrections?
I would like to.
Oh, go ahead, Darshan. I'll go ahead.
Hi, this is Darshan Patel speaking, third-year family medicine resident. I would like to suggest a change in the agenda. Instead of going into subcommittee reports, is if we can start with a report from maybe the co-chairs, Dr. Levi and Romero-Leggett, on any progress that's occurred from your end based on last meeting, actually the subsequent maybe 5 meetings about the feedback that's been given from each of the subcommittees. And then we can go into the subcommittee reports unless there's any objection.
Can you be a little more specific about the discussion from last time that you wanted an update on? I'm sorry, I have so many things in my head. I'm not sure specifically what you're addressing.
Sure. I think what might be helpful also is if we have minutes for these meetings, and I don't know if we have minutes from any of the previous meetings so that we can actually kind of keep ourselves accountable. But I think from each of the subcommittees over and over again, we've had kind of sets of feedback. You know, instead of recreating the same meeting again and again, what I'm suggesting is that we figure out a process to talk about that first.
Well, I think that's a great idea. And to that end, we have been recording these meetings, and I haven't asked if anyone has an objection to us recording this meeting today. Meg, can you go ahead and, oh, you started recording already. Okay, we are recording. So recordings of the meetings exist, and it might be a good idea if somebody would be willing to review the recordings. Are you also taking minutes, Meg? I know we can't see you, but I know you're here. Meg Alcock, are you on with us now? Oh, no, she is not currently taking minutes. Okay, we do have recordings, however. So I feel a little ill-equipped to respond to the last meeting's content without immediate access to the recording. I think your observation is a really powerful one and really important to our ability to keep moving our agenda forward. So I would like to ask if there's anyone on the call who can take minutes at this moment in time, or who would be willing would be willing to review the recordings, to take minutes from the recordings that have already occurred. I don't know, Dr. Romero-Leggett, if you would like to have a conversation with me offline about how we can make that happen, since nobody's raising their hand.
Yeah, we can do that, Dr. Levi. And then again, I think for now anyway, at least, we do have the recordings. And again, not everyone has time to listen to, an hour of recordings or 45 minutes of it, but I think they're also important too, because there are a lot of nuances, or a lot of times some things are not caught up in the minutes as well, but most certainly we can sure have that conversation. Thank you.
So I think that's a great suggestion going forward, Dr. Patel. And I didn't know if there was something specific from the last meeting that you wanted to address before we launch into the subcommittee reports.
Well, I guess, maybe I can suggest another way of going about this for our agenda is that if any of the subcommittees have anything substantive to share in addition to what's been shared previously, please share it in the chat. And then we move directly into the discussion about the kind of substance of the die-in and a check-in about a year into where this group is at and how we're going to move forward significantly in terms of that. Are there any objections to that alteration in the agenda?
No, I think that makes great use of our time. And like you said, Dr. Patel, not just kind of saying the same thing over and over, right? You said of substance, is anything substantive that's different. So I think that's helpful. And then going into the other, yeah.
All right, so then why don't we have anybody in the subcommittees who wants to share any substantive changes, please add it to the chat. And then maybe we can move into talking about kind of what we learned from the 1 year marking of the beginning of this coalition and how we're going to learn from that and move forward. Thank you for those of you who are present at the 1 year mark of, yeah, maybe we can go start with that.
Might be great to hear about the die-in, since that was a very public recognition of the 1 year mark, and then for folks from the various subcommittees to reflect on what's occurred in the past year. I see that Dr. Khan is here, and she was one of the organizers of the die-in. I don't know, Farinaz, if you can speak to that, or if there's someone else present who participated or was part of the organization of it who can speak to it.
Hi, yes. Sorry, I'm heating up my lunch, so I may have missed a little bit, but yeah, on last Thursday, we held a commemorative event where we basically just discussed how this work is not has not ended, right? And we need to continue doing this work, continuing to hold institutions and systems accountable. We had a wonderful panel of speakers, Black, Indigenous, disabled people, Palestinian people, and also the UNM graduate students are trying to unionize. And so we had a representative from their coalition as well. But I really want to echo what Darshan was saying. I think it's been a year since we first presented our grievances, and at the die-in, we actually also presented some grievances. It seemed like only two kind of top-level administrators were there, and I'm not sure if they were able to listen to the grievances, but I think part of this work is holding institutions, right, accountable. And so I think we are waiting still a year later to hear responses to our grievances and what action steps are going to be taken to address grievances. Those things have not really been provided to us, and we're tired of waiting, and we want to see from our administrators, what is your response to the things that we have addressed and raised? And in what way are you creating plans and action steps to move forward in order to rectify some of these historical and contemporary grievances that we have?
So were any of the individuals that you identify as administrators who were there present in this venue? Because I was unable to attend. I was out of town. I don't know who the individuals are that you spoke with. And if they are here and they can respond, that would be great.
Thank you, Tristan. She placed a recording of the die-in into the chat. And this year it was only Dr. Romero Leggett and Dr. Sanchez that were present as far as I could identify. I do recognize that I don't really know everybody. And so
and
there were
Dr. Rohan Minares as well.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Khan, yeah.
So it was, kind of disappointing that more people were not present.
And I believe Heidi Rogers was present via Zoom. Thank you.
So it might be helpful if you could reiterate what the concerns were that you shared at that time, other than not feeling as though the original set of concerns had been appropriately addressed. Were there some new concerns? Were there other things? Now that Dr. Ziodonis has joined us, it might be helpful for him to be able to hear this.
But what I'd say is each of the subcommittees has published written reports that has been shared and has been continuously updated for the past year. What we need is a serious review of what that is and a response from high-level leadership about what we're going to do about it with timelines and benchmarks, rather than just meetings that are endless and aren't going anywhere. That would reflect institutional commitment on the issues, period. We need organization around that. And that's significantly lacking. And it cannot come from learners. We are residents, we are medical students, we're physical therapy students and nursing students. It needs to institutional change. Yes, we're moving it from the bottom, but we need you all to take it seriously. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that happen. And those reports, by the way, we have a lot of supportive people here who helped us create that, but they were driven for the most part by learners. And we are valuable, and you need to take it seriously. And that's not happening right now.
I think one example of some of that, and certainly definitely hear what you're saying there, Dr. Patel, but one example of some movement and some action I feel is the admissions pipeline committee and some of the presentations and conversations that we've had with Dr. Ziodonis and some recent, I think Tristan, you dropped something in the chat here on that, and maybe you would like to, or someone from that group would like to just maybe make mention about some of that a little bit too, and in regards to, again, some of the substantive changes from the last time that we met.
So the AMP subcommittee did finish a promising practices report, but it was completed by learners. We spent hours and hours and hours and hours putting it together. And we haven't sent it over yet. I'll do that this week. But I think the recommendations that come out of it still need to be substantive. Like it's the same like things that Dr. Patel is saying. It's yes, Dr. Ziodonis, with Vera, but like meetings only go so far. Like we need action, and like we need recommendations that'll like come to fruition. And I think that's what we're all frustrated about. It feels like a lot of us are graduating, and like we were just like spinning the wheels and waiting until we're all gone. Like honestly, I think that's how a lot of people are feeling. And instead of having meetings, have like action items, like what are we going to do, like timelines. And I think that's a lot of us are like frustrated. That's been a year and like there has been progress, but it's been very like, and I understand like in institutions such as this, they are slow, but I also feel like at what point are we going to make substantive change? Like Dr. Patel was saying. So yes, the ANP subcommittee finished the promising practice report. So thanks to everyone who worked on that. But I think just finishing the report doesn't speak to the fact that the institution itself is changing.
Well, I think it is important to recognize that the institution has undergone a pretty significant change in the last 6 months. When this all started, Dr. Roth was the chancellor. We have a new executive vice president in Dr. Ziodonis, and I think that represents quite a significant change institution-wide. I'm sure that it's imperceptible to a lot of people who lives are not directly involved with what happens, but at the chancellor's level or what is now the EVP level. But I think it's really important to recognize that this is a sea change in our institution, and that the kinds of changes that have been articulated and hope to be addressed are the kinds of changes that do very much hinge on the top leadership. So not to put you on the spot, Dr. Ziodonis, but I think it is important for this group to recognize how important it is to contextualize your expectations for change with the kinds of change that we're undergoing as an institution right now. And I don't know if you want to speak to that more, Dr. Ziodonis, but I feel like it's really important to be able to see that we are really undergoing a huge culture change here, and that your concerns, as they've been expressed over and over again, are very much contextualized to this new change. So I'm inviting Dr. Ziodonis to speak to that a little bit, because I think it's really hard to be able to say, you're right, you haven't seen all the changes you were hoping to, because at the same time, we have had a pretty big change at the top.
Thank you, Dr. Levi, for giving him the floor. Since I've been here, I've been actively listening and attending to these meetings. I agree with Dr. Patel that these need to be addressed in a written action item way. And we do need to make big changes. So I appreciate the leadership of Dr. Levi, Dr. Romero-Leggett, Dr. McGrew, Dr. Sanchez, Dr. Smart, the many of you on this call, all of you are as leaders. So it's really a team effort. So I do think we want to make sure that all of the reports are digested, reviewed, and action steps moving forward. I do think it was great for the ANP committee to present their work. I learned a lot through that. We also made analogies to things that I was seeing that weren't in the report, but that were consistent. For example, all of our faculty hires. I'm leading one now for the School of Medicine dean, and I wanted to make sure we had in place not just unconscious bias training, but really a review of all of the processes with which faculty search committees are put together, understanding where we're doing our searches, what is the makeup of people who apply and move through the different steps, and that there would be training as it relates to serving on search committees that goes beyond unconscious bias. So all of those are steps that we now are moving forward on for all the faculty hires. And I have some subgroups trying to make sure that we have those structures in place. So those align actually quite well with the ANP committee's findings, and that we need to have that level of detail also as it relates to student groups. I'm hoping that the Inclusive Excellence Council will also be concretizing all the matters that are raised from your reports. I've been very impressed with the work that's occurred, and I agree that these things have to be done. There are small items that I think are important that I've asked everybody who reports to me to have diversity outcomes as target goals each year. That was not something that was in place before I got here, and it's now added to everybody's evaluation. And I hope that that will then also ripple. This first 6 months that when I started, I let people make their own choices on what those outcomes and goals would be. But I imagine that as we move forward, that many of the issues that are raised will then become more clear as far as what we need the whole institution to have as goals and moving forward. And then those could be included in leaders' goals and outcomes to be assessed. I have also talked with that I'd like to have reviews of each of our units so that we have a sense of climate, of a sense of the numbers as it relates to faculty, students, and staff, and how changes have occurred or not occurred. So I see members of this group who will continue to serve on the various Inclusive Excellence Councils, or from this specific group will help shape the measures that we're going to be put together. And I'm charging Dr. Romero-Leggett's office to put those items in place. So I do think that's going to also have an ability to influence items there. So I do think the issues raised by Dr. Patel are really important, and I do think Dr. Romero-Leggett, your office will, I hope, can put all the items together from the different reports into one document that we then can be very specific on what are the items that are being addressed. I think we all care about health equity and that how that's aligned with race equity. And so I'm currently working on a health equity summit for the fall, which includes we're in the pre-planning phase right now with the Secretary of Health, Tracy Collins, Lisa Kakari-Stone, Dr. Romero-Leggett, as a few of the members that are starting to put this together. And I would assume that I've brought this up at other meetings with you all, and I look forward to those of you who would like to be part of that Health Equity Summit planning process to let Dr. Romero-Leggett know so that we can add you to the leadership group. So I think I'll stop at this point, but this is a vital area. It's been an area that I've been looking at a lot since I've been here and learning a lot, and not assuming that any place I've been at before is the same as this place. And so I appreciate all of the many meetings that I've been in with you all, and will continue to be. So I think I'm just going to take a pause there.
Thanks,
I
Dr.
do want to
Zuniga.
say that so obviously turnover will slow things down by its nature in getting people up to speed, and I know we're going to go through that again soon with Dr. McGrew. But ultimately, I think we have to remember and keep the framework that this is a public institution and that it's also an institution of higher learning. And our goal as an institution of higher learning should be to listen and address concerns from learners. That's why part of why we're all here, I would hope, is because we care about the next generation of people that are becoming health professionals. And what we're saying is that we don't feel like our concerns are being heard and listened to. And I think that people at the top level of leadership should be held responsible and accountable for that.
It would be really helpful to know what it is you're not seeing. I think the report from the admissions and pipeline group was very concrete, and there were issues there that were addressed. So I know it's hard to get into the specifics, but I think there have been changes and things have been addressed in different ways. I think the data group has definitely started some important conversations about some very complex issues, as has the finance group. So when you say that nothing's been addressed, I feel like that's a little bit of an overgeneralization, because I think some things have been addressed. So when you say nothing's been addressed, it's helpful to me to hear more specifics and not to get into generalizations that may not really contain all of the items that we have been discussing. I think the curriculum subgroups have definitely made progress. As Dr. Ziodonis said, we are being very intentional in our hiring practices. We're not going to be able to diversify the faculty overnight. That's just not going to happen. But we can put things into place regarding how we hire people to impact the diversity. So when you say nothing has happened, I really need to know, what is it that you're looking for that you're not seeing?
I don't believe I said nothing has been addressed. I said that we have concerns that are continuing to not be addressed. And if people had gone to the event, administrators, I think they could have heard. And I think Dr. Romero-Leggett is the only one here that was there. Were you able to understand what the grievances were, Dr. Romero-Leggett? And maybe you can inform the rest of the administrators on the call.
Well, I think that to the point that's being made, I think that the feeling is that a lot of the concerns that were discussed a year ago, I think part of the issue is that maybe some of the strides that have been made maybe are not as visible, or we're not really sharing it in a way that people can actually see that there's been some progress. And I think that would be, a good first step. Well, I think the first step was having the committee checklist that just got done now, where things were prioritized. I think that's really helpful, because from there, then I think we are accountable to, again, those are the demands, those are the concerns that we need to go to those and be able to address each of those and show what has or hasn't been done or where the progress is. And I think that is part of the problem, is it needs to be put in again into one document in one place. And then we need to start addressing, issue by issue, so we can see that. And again, also see where we haven't, I think would be most helpful. But I think part of it, I felt there were just some incredibly powerful speakers. But a lot of what I heard too was just a feeling like, what has been the progress, and there really doesn't seem to have been as much. And also I think just a little bit of a, kind of sadness in terms of like, where was the turnout and where were the people, that a year ago, and not wanting to make sure that this does not just go by the wayside, and that we really want to embrace this and, have a commitment from leadership. And I'm saying, yes, we will definitely, we are committed to this. We will make an effort as we go into the IEC and the committee work there. And, as we institutionalize things, our hope had been that we would take this forward and start looking at how we can start making changes. But again, I do feel like some of it has not been visible enough so that we can actually share things that have, that are directly linked to some of those demands. And we need to do a better job of that. And we're getting some things together, because I think a lot of wonderful, great work is happening in the committees. And then we kind of report out, but we're not linking them. And I think it's hard to see. So, we'll take that on to really try to make that a little bit more clear and then see where we're at. But I can think of, a few like amazing examples, the work that Dr. Smart's group has been doing, but the work in now where we can actually see the trends and see our faculty by race, ethnicity, gender, LGBTQ, like where we never had that. And you can go to the website, link, pull it up there. Everybody can see that. It's transparent. But the other thing we're going to be working on is creating a dashboard, right? So that we can see the progress that we've made, and things are just more visible easily. Because I think that was one of the things when we came into all of this that all of us definitely agreed on, is that the information may be there, but who the heck knows how to find it, right? Like, who knows? And even those of us who are in the system and the institution didn't even know. So I think those kind of things, again, the visibility, addressing and linking things will help us moving forward. And we will do that. We'll do that through the office. We'll put together that document. And then again, as the IEC launches and we start moving into the committee work, we'll have opportunity to also bring these to IEC and talk about how the things will be addressed, and to hopefully have voices there as well from the White Coats for Black Indigenous Lives.
The last thing I'll say, because I do want to leave room for others to talk as well, but we have presented two examples from a private institution, Brown University, but also from a public institution, University of Arizona, where they have places on their website where they talk about progress on student demands and action plans. And so there are models that already exist that can be emulated in response to all of the things that we are asking for and have concerns about. And we have brought those things up at these meetings before as well.
I think that's a great suggestion. And Dr. Romero-Leggett and I can talk about what resources we have to be able to create such a website and include the reports and the dashboards. We do, as you know, have a repository that is managed by the library of the reports and also documents that people have come out with. So we have that as a repository, but it's not linked to any outward facing websites where the public could access the information. So I'll put that on my agenda with Dr. Romero-Leggett to see how we could make that happen. It's a great suggestion, and I appreciate your sharing that.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to do that. I can link you with Alex Sanchez, who can help with any website support needed to do that.
One comment I had in response to kind of, it seems like a disconnect of perceived lots of changes from administration or from some, and on the other side, kind of discontinuation of status quo. I think, we are stewards of public lands on Indigenous land and a public institution. And we are, by virtue of our paid, appointed, and, kind of assumed roles, responsible to take those roles and create institutional change when we have the opportunity. And institutional change means we're organized, and that we are including people from top to bottom. And I think if there's one piece of feedback I can give is to say, we need to get organized if we're going to take this seriously. I'm still flabbergasted that we don't have, minutes. We don't have action items for this. I think the learners have it, right? But I think if we're going to continue meeting what I would suggest is that this meeting doesn't happen again unless there is a collation of what has occurred and then a response from the administrators on the call about what the next steps are. Otherwise, I think we're just rehashing the same conversation over and over again.
I appreciate that a lot. I think it is about identifying resources. So I think that is our next step. Dr. Romero Leggett and I will have to identify some resources to be able to turn the recordings into minutes, to identify someone who can take minutes. And that is a challenge all by itself. So I appreciate your summation of your sense of a lack of progress forward, that there are other ways that progress is occurring that are not visible, and we need to make them more visible. So your suggestions are very helpful to that end.
Well, I don't think that's a good enough excuse. So I think it's not resources. We have resources. So we should be able to get minutes done. We should be able to get action items put together. So let's, Dr. Levi, you and Dr. Romero Leggett, I'm happy to meet with you. Let's talk about that, because some of what we're talking about should just be done. And we have plenty of resources for it. When we get into some of the health equity issues, that's going to have a need for other resources. But that's not a good enough excuse yet.
I think what also the die-in should represent is the continued sense of urgency on this issue. And it's not, and my perception is until we're able to do that, and we're showing up here to partner with the institution to make it happen. This is not us trying to create a path of failure. This is not meant to be oppositional. We're saying, look, we've actually done the work for the institution to say, these are the steps that we can take. Let's work together on how we can do that. We don't have to recreate the wheel, go through another consultation process, et cetera, et cetera. And then if there's things that you feel like aren't able to be done, it needs to be stated so that we can move forward on the things that can. And so this is an opportunity for us to actually, create institutional change in an organized fashion, rather than just having endless meetings.
Yeah, I think, again, from my view of an organization, that when I saw at the unit of the A&P work group that I've been meeting with, it was clear to me that the deans needed to be a part of that process. And that's how I would, think from a brainstorm point of view of next steps as one example of how we move forward on it. Now, I now meet with the deans regularly. This is a topic we regularly talk about. So I do think, and even when I had the last meeting with Tristan and everybody else on that subgroup, I did mention to other people, and we did at the end of the meeting have some responses and action items. So I agree, Dr. Patel, that this needs to be organizationally inserted. And maybe we have to rethink the purpose of this broader meeting, this one, of being the update on how that gets implemented at the next level of integration. But that would, when I listened to that work group's presentation and I saw their report and their really good ideas, that's where I thought, oh, we got to get the deans on top of this and engaged in this process. And I'm appreciative that Dean McGrew's on this call. But I can tell you, I've talked with all the other deans also of nursing and pharmacy and population health. So I would suggest that, and Dean McGrew's, hold that thought for 1 second. I would suggest that we, Dr. Romero Leggett and Dr. Levi, that we take to heart some of these comments, but where would some of the work that's been done have its biggest impact, and that group has to be engaged more deeply in the process. Although I'm sure Dr. McGrew, I know you do a lot already. So I'm going to pause and pass the baton to you, Dr. McGrew.
Thank you. We can never do enough. I want to say that at first, but I have a couple of comments that I just want to make because I think it's important. I personally would have loved to attend the die-in, and I have no idea how it was publicized. I've actually, during this meeting, gone back and looked in my email and everything and could not find a place. And the only way I found out about it, and it's probably me, I get about 10,000, that's probably exaggeration. I get a lot of emails every day, as you might imagine. But I've gone back and looked to try to find because I would have loved to have come. I found out about it because of, and it looks like I might have missed it, but if an HSC email was out, I've gone back and looked, but I'll go back and look again, but I didn't see it. I would have loved to have come. I heard about it the night before, secondhand in an email in family medicine. So just to be clear about that, I would have loved to have been there. That's one thing. The second thing is, it's really important. I would value being included in these issues. So when you're presenting something to Dr. Zadonis and Dr. Romero-Leggett, if there is an issue in the medical school or somewhere else with any of these practices, it would be good to include the deans because then they can impact it. I think there is probably a lot of stuff going on, and I would say in the School of Medicine, enough, probably not, but there are some great things going on. We've just started adding, for instance, Dr. Smart's on some of our high-level search committees right now. We've begun to include learners. We've done lots of stuff. We are hiring up, it's going to be about a total of a half FTE for curriculum content management in the School of Medicine because we've already got 0.2 and we're adding some other folks, both for residents and then for all of our learning programs. So I'm a short timer now, but I would be delighted to be involved in those meetings because I think there are different approaches for different colleges, and only if we're involved can we really make that. But I think, again, I'm sorry I wasn't there. I totally missed an HSC communication about it in the midst of all the email I got. I think that's one of our problems right now, and we are starting a big effort in the School of Medicine about how we communicate on email because we can't be together in person, people are getting so many emails, they just can't not even read all of them. So delighted to be involved at whatever level in my time here.
Thanks. And I'm also glad that we have the link. I can make sure that the deans get a copy of that link. I was on vacation with my family, and also I do think it's great that we have the link so we can look at it now.
Happy to hear any feedback, by the way.
So just to be clear as well here that we will, from the office, find some support to do the minutes, to go ahead and take the minutes, and again, to compile and make sure that we have all of what we need, whether it's on for whatever website or with Alex's help, or it's on the digital repository or whatever, but to make sure that we have that.
And I think if I'm seeing what Dr. Levi put in, I get a lot of emails too, so I didn't even know about the event either, although I was away. So it looks like it went out to the students. So, we need a better way of communicating.
Well, we have agreed with the deans and the core group that I have authorization to send communications to the students, which I did, and that deans have the authorization to send things to their staff and faculty, which I communicated to Farinaz when she asked me to forward the email. So that's how it has to be sent out, is through the deans. That's their preference in terms of how those kinds of communications go to their staff and faculty. We've been discussing that related to COVID things and how to make sure people don't get bombarded with emails. So if there's a decision to change that, we should bring it up with that group again. But that is the decision that was made several months ago about sending out information. So that's how it gets sent. If anybody has information like the die-in to send out, it has to go to me for students and to the deans for their staff and faculty.
Yeah, and thank you, Anita. I'm not sure that we can send a recording out to everybody. I think that you probably would not have much uptake on listening to an hour recording by folks. I was more referring to things like announcements about the die-ins and things like that. I think while I appreciate that the recording should be available and we can let folks know that it's available, for instance, in an HSC Connects, I don't think sending out the recording will get you much. Given that people don't have time to read emails, I'm not sure they'd have time to listen to a recording. So, but thank you for offering. And we should have it in a place that people can go and listen to it if they would like.
It could be on in the library's repository.
Yep, that's right.
I'll put the URL in the chat in a minute.
And I think to the point, we could,
could,
yeah, and like HSC Communications, we
could put the link there.
But to advertise, yeah, and for upcoming events again.
Yeah, I'd be happy to have sent out the die-in information, just so you know I want to be there.
Well, I do think we should look at the way communication rolls out, because
I agree.
If Dr. Levi, if you only have authorization to send it to students, let's have a chat, because you should have other authorization. And we can engage the communication group. And I would be thinking of, whether it's this group directly send something to all the deans and all the chairs of the different departments, you would get at least probably more likelihood of faculty receiving it. And maybe it has to be that two-prong approach, because that's how I would get stuff out myself.
And that was just what the deans wanted. So I was just going along with what the deans wanted. So I'm happy to re-examine that.
Yeah, and I think just checking in with us would be great. But one of the things that we know about cascading communication that we have learned over the last couple of years is that people are more likely to hear it if it comes from their one-up supervisor. And so cascading, at least in the School of Medicine, to the senior associate deans and the chairs to cascade is a wonderful way to do it. They're much more likely to open it up if they see their chair's name on it than if they see a HSC communications on it, because it gets, those have a lot of information in them that sometimes people don't have time to read. But you want this to stand out.
Well, one other thing just on communicating, Dr. Smart put a really good PowerPoint together for me that I've shared with others about the faculty, some adjustments for our searches for faculty. And I don't want to put Dr. Smart on the spot, of course, other than to say she did an awesome job, but that might be the kind of thing to also present to the group here as one of those updates, since there might also be feedback for there.
Happy to do it. And there's even more data and ways to look at it. So I think that perhaps that would play a role in really looking at the visibility of some of the things that are being done, at least to track accountability. I think that's the role of the numbers, is where do we see things trending up and where do we see things trending down and where are they staying the same, and that can input all of the other decisions. So definitely can do that.
And thank you, Dr. Smart, too, because again, that's work that has been actually happening over several years and culminating now in this incredible dashboard, and then a lot of the other work and effort and time you put in now so that we can be going down into the departmental and division levels and look at those trends and things that we really needed to have baseline data as well to be following over time for both the faculty piece here and then the work that Dr. Gonzalez is doing and the team on the student part of it, and then looking to go to the staff piece is the next part as well.
Before we end, I just wanted to say, aside from communication and needing help with just general things like that, as far as sending something out, to the entire students, it would make sense that we would probably want to announce it to all faculty. But, you know, these little things are what we as learners need help with as we're moving forward. But also I feel like when we talk about there aren't very many visible changes, I think we're aware of the changes that have been made this year, because by and large, it has been through a ton of coordinated learner work. And it seems like every time this coalition has a recommendation, and I'm sure any recommendation requires, you know, evidence and support as to why we think it. But I feel like this coalition has been approached very condescendingly and almost as though we don't understand the systems that we are trying to change. And so I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if that's a matter of communication within meetings and increasing visibility, as mentioned before, or if it is a core understanding that maybe our administration needs to really look at their biases and how they are looking at learners and our experiences. I think that there's a lot of progress being made as far as collaboration and work between administration, learners, and everyone else that is comprising this coalition. But moving forward, you know, that being the biggest thought that I see is that really feeling that we're not being heard no matter, or that it requires us hours of work and huge presentations in order to be even considered. And that's a really abstract thought. I know it's the end of the meeting, but before I left for Chicago, that is something that I wanted to share.
I appreciate your sharing that, Anita. I think one of the things that we have not experienced much in this group is acknowledgement and gratitude for the work that people are doing, that we have really fallen back on why hasn't it been more? Why hasn't it been better? Why hasn't it been faster? And I, for one, really value appreciation and gratitude for what has occurred. And so if I come across as frustrated at times, that's why. I feel like Dr. Romero-Leggett and I, with Dr. Ziadonis's support, have really done what we could under really challenging circumstances. And so to be told that we're not doing enough feels a little bit like, oh, I just don't have enough hours in the day to satisfy some people's expectations. So it's really helpful to me for us to have clear expectations of each other and to right size those with reality. And that being grateful for what has been able to be accomplished, including the work of the students, the faculty, the administration, goes a long way for me in terms of feeling like we're moving the needle forward. Yes, it's not perfect. We didn't get here because we were doing the right thing all the time. That's a really hard thing to work with, is acknowledging that we haven't done our best job or the job that we should have been doing for a long time. And so it takes time. It takes time, patience, and appreciation of what we all have to offer under the circumstances. So I really want to acknowledge everyone's efforts. Everyone who's made the time to be on this call has contributed in some way, shape, or form. And if you feel condescension, if you feel frustration, I feel frustration, a lack of acknowledgement, a lack of being embraced, that may be what it is. These are hard things, and we've all been working really hard at it. And it's hard to hear that it's not enough when we've been doing the best we can. The people on this call have really put a lot of time and effort into meeting the expectations. So it's hard to hear that we're not cutting it, because it's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be fast. Yes, we do need more transparency, and we do need to work at continuing to increase the transparency. But it's hard work, and we do need more help. So I just...
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Levi. I think you've actually proved the exact point that I was trying to make. We never said you're not doing anything, and we're never saying that you guys aren't doing it enough. And frankly, we are very grateful to be here. But throughout generations, lack of gratitude has been used against us. That we should always be grateful for what we have. We should always be grateful for the little progress that we're making. We are very aware of that, and we are grateful for the work that you're doing, and we are grateful to be able to learn and work with these communities. But for us to share our frustration with you should not automatically be taken as an insult or as a sign that you're not doing enough. It is a fact that this whole institution is not doing enough, and that we continually get told, please be patient with us. We know you have not seen us be impatient yet. And I'm sorry that I have to come out and say this, but this is every single meeting, a comment like that comes out. And that is exactly what we are talking about.
Well,
And
I'm sorry
also
that it hit
that-
you the wrong way.
I don't think it's hitting us the wrong way. It's, we're not upset at faculty and staff that are doing this work unpaid. We recognize, and what Teresa said, we recognize that a lot of people have taken on this work because it's important to them. We've had faculty and staff tell us they had to step away because they could not accommodate the time to do this work. But as learners, right, and as residents, we're working 60 to 80 hours a week and doing this time. And we're talking about the A&P report. That took so much time I couldn't even count, and there's not recognition of that. And instead, we're being told that here are some other people that you should email. We have to look up who all the deans are or who all these people are that we need to be sending our email to. And that's not fair. That's not grounded in justice. But we are here because this work is personal to all of us, as most of us that is doing this work are people of color. And so, yeah, it's very hurtful to say that people that are getting FTE and are getting funded to do this work, we should be more patient with, when we're not really given that same patience or that same acknowledgement for the work that we're doing for free on top of our 60 to 80 hour work weeks.
I'm really sorry I have to go. I have a class that I'm teaching that started a minute ago, and it's in another building. So I'm going to have to leave you. My apologies. I'm open to continued dialogue. I'm sorry if you felt offended, but I am feeling frustrated and I needed to express that. So as you share yours, I feel entitled to share mine. And I'm sorry to have to leave.
I think before we leave, I'll just say that, for whatever the next meeting will be, because I know there's some transition and we're losing some of our residents and students, and is that we will have a different agenda, and again, really listening and hearing what people are saying about, how to make these really productive, more meaningful meetings, and then how we move this forward as an institution. So really committed to that and telling you that at this point for sure. I know Emma asked a question in the chat as well about the IEC meetings. So as we speak, Allie is completing a form, the registration link to put out that we'll put something in HSC Connects, but it is next Wednesday. Well, let me make sure the date. My God, sometimes I don't even know what the today is. Next Wednesday, the 16th at noon to 1. And again, there will be a little thing in HSC Connects communications coming out that'll have that registration link and the information for that, and would love to welcome everybody to please join us. So thank you for asking about that, and just again a deep appreciation and for the honesty that is shared in these. And I know again the frustration, and we do need to do better, but again, deep appreciation for people and the time and the effort, and as you said, for people who are not getting paid to do that. So thank you, everyone. And I know we're over our time, but very, very much appreciate this. Thank you.